Hello, everybody. I'm bringing a little bouncy ball energy this morning, or whatever, this afternoon. So forgive me if it's a little hard to match. Playing a little silly. And it's good, though, to be silly when we practice Mahamudra because everything's an illusion, including all of us. And all of our seriousness and all of our problems and all of our joys is all illusory. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you all. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, this is Mahamudra for the People. And we're continuing from last week. Last week, we started a doha by the Mahasiddha Saraha, which is part of this collection of 8 dohas or 8 spiritual songs, or in Tibetan, they're called gyur, on Mahamudra that the 16th Karmapa had compiled in the 70s. I want to say, if I remember correctly, 1972 or so, in Bhutan. And so this text was compiled, and somehow I got a copy of it in Tibetan in the kind of, I don't know, 2013, 2014, and received the transmission from Ringo Tuku Rinpoche, who was staying uh, at our house here while he was teaching at Gyaltsen Rinpoche's Dharma Center. And then I've received this also from His Eminence Gyaltsen Rinpoche, one of my principal teachers. And it's a real joy to be able to share here with everybody. And so depending, we may just go through this whole text of a collection of eight Mahamudra texts, or not. We'll see. We'll see what the mood is like when we're done with this one. So before we kind of jump into where we left off at this portion, which actually moves into basically ascertaining certainty through the experience of the view, the actual practice of meditation as per this text, and then conduct. And I think we'll be able to make it through all 3 of these points today. But before we go any further, let's take a little bit of time to settle into the meditative state for about 12 minutes. So allow yourself to get as comfortable as you can. So if you could be seated, be seated. If laying down is kind of more appropriate for you and your body, that's fine too. Letting your back be as straight as is comfortable, hands in meditation mudra in your lap or on your knees. Let your breath be natural. You don't have to go, creating busy, complex, ways of breathing. Just be natural. If you can, let your jaw and tongue be comfortable with your tongue, a little bit up against the roof of your mouth, your palate. Right? But again, natural. Don't don't freak out. And let your mind be loose and easy and relaxed. And with respect to placing the mind, allow yourself to relax, letting go of the past completely. So letting go of anything that happened before this moment. Allow yourself to let go of the future, that which has not happened yet. And try to allow yourself to relax out of any particular pressure or stress around this particular moment. Letting go of any need to control, letting go of any need to figure out whatever is happening, and just rest into open awareness. And just take a moment to come back to us being together. Okay. So, rather than recap too much, I'm just going to move into the next part of the text. And if anybody missed the first part, the recording has been made and I believe is available. And there's also going to be time for questions and whatnot, and also another short sitting session too. So we're going to fit it all in. So the second part of this text is dedicated to the practice of Mahamudra. And as I mentioned before, there are three parts. And the first is ascertaining certainty through the view. The second is meditation. And the third is conduct. And ascertaining certainty through the view is divided into three parts. The first is the nature of the view. The second is the manner of realization. And the third is the fact that it is unchanging. And so because this is a song, or doha, begins in this way. Swaha says, "Hey ho, with an undistracted mind, look at yourself. When you've realized your own truth, even the distracted mind arises as Mahamudra. Concepts are spontaneously liberated. There is a state of great bliss." Right, and so in what he's essentially saying is, with an undistracted mind, look not at yourself as in look in the mirror, but look at the experiences that arise in the moment. Right? And so just take a moment to sit, right? And let yourself go, as it were. Okay? Allow yourself to just be free. You don't have to control anything, definitely not. Just let your mind be. And this practice is really letting awareness, the mind's awareness of itself, to be able to arise. And in this way, even the quote unquote distracted mind arises as the mind of Mahamudra. And so look to see if there are any concepts or thoughts, feelings, and just gently look at them. Not in a way we're objectifying them, but just glance and let awareness envelope them, so to speak, and then see what happens. And Saraha describes this by saying concepts are spontaneously liberated. And there's a state of great bliss. And so this bliss is not, the kind of, it's not this orgasmic bliss, right? It's this kind of relaxed contentedness. That arises sometimes when the application of just this light glance, right? This awareness itself meeting whatever is arising. It's almost as if it's like the warm sun on a slightly misty morning that causes the mist to just naturally burn off without any work, right? Or the way dew evaporates on grass, with the hardness of concept, the hardness of ideas, etc. seems to just vanish. Surah goes on to say that happiness and sufferings, the happiness and sufferings of dreams, have no reality when one is awake. And so all thoughts of hope and fear are abandoned. Who will then have thoughts of cessation and accomplishment? And again, this is kind of, coming back to this original natural, easeful place of letting the awareness of mind have everything self-liberate. And when we do this, happiness and suffering, hope and fear, all of these things begin to dissolve. Right? We're able to just be without a lot of the stickiness, without a lot of the intensity, and without there being a particular person, an identity, to have thoughts of cessation or experiences of accomplishment. When we're resting like this, where is the me? That hard me that got so irritated the other day, or the hard me that felt sad or overwhelmed. Sra goes on to say that all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana have no real nature when the truth is seen. And so thoughts of hope and worry come to an end. And what effort of adoption and rejection could there be? Going from the bottom of this stanza, adoption and rejection have a lot to do with the application of effort. Right? I need to stop thinking this way, or stop doing this, or I need to apply this other thing. But when we're able to just rest naturally in an unfabricated way, letting whatever happens happen, and meet that with awareness, again, mind's ability to recognize itself, mind's ability to rest into the direct experience of itself, without any push or pull, just open, easy presence, then there is no need for effort. There is no need for adopting any particular thing. There's no need to reject any particular thing. There's no need for hope. There's no need for worry. In this way, we begin to see that samsara and nirvana are so closely related. They're half brothers or half sisters or relatives. Or maybe they're the same person. Depends on the day. Right? And so he goes on to continue that all appearances and sounds are like illusions, mirages and reflections without any characteristics of reality. The one who creates these illusions is the mind, right? Cognitive mind. Cognitive mind is space, has no center, has no edge, no center and edge which anyone can know. He goes on to say that, know that just as all of the various rivers, such as the Ganges, have one taste in the salty waters of the ocean, so all analyzing minds and various mental events have one taste in the Dharma Dhatu. Right? So this is, all of what's the term, nantok, right, in Tibetan, this kind of discursive mind, discursive thought. So all of the, discursiveness is one taste at the end. Right? All of our hopes and fears and dreams, anxieties, all of our busyness, all of our need to characterize things, all of our need to define everything, all of the conditionality around being able to trust in experience, all of that has just one taste when we rest directly into the experience of mind itself. Right? So maybe these are not a philosophical text, right? This is no headiness. There's nothing to master here other than the experience of your own mind. Um, yeah. So let's return back to sitting. And again, we're going to do this for about 12 minutes or so. But as we do, allow yourself to just rest very naturally into whatever is happening. Right? And so we're going to do Tulopa's nails a little backwards. So start with resting. So allow yourself to relax, right? Rest. And then don't try to figure anything out. Right? When these thoughts come, if they come, right? If there's thought activity, don't try to figure them out. Just pretend you're at the zoo, just watching. As experience arises, don't try to control it. If thought activity comes on hard and fast, don't control it, just let it be. If there's no thought activity, don't freak out. You're still alive. Just let it be. If something in between happens, don't control. Just let it be. Relax and let go of the future. Let go of ambition. Let go of the expectation around experience happening, or some kind of accomplishment. Let go of this moment. Just relax. Let go of the pressure of needing to show up in a particular way. And let go of the past. Let go of everything that's already happened. And I'll sit like this for 12 minutes. Simply allow yourself to rest and let awareness of whatever happens be the active agent. I've been translating this Mahamudra text from the Utah very slowly, and I was working on it a bit yesterday. And there's this great term, Rangsha Rangjol, which means self-arising, self-liberated. Right? And this is a really good kind of term to describe essentially what Saraha is pointing out here is, so the Rangshar part is self-arising. Thought activity comes, we experience it in this way where it's just happening, right? It can be every random little thought that comes, right? There could be gaps of space between, or it could be, like a woodpecker. So the self-arising part is it's just happening, right? Part of our problem is that it is so personalized the moment it happens. So, you know, everything has a little hook that we can easily kind of attach to, right? But the more that we sit in this kind of practice, the more that we are able to just see that, things just pop like popcorn. Thoughts come, thoughts go, thoughts come, thoughts go. Right? Self-arising, they just happen. Right? This is just part of the nature of the way the mind works. Then the Rangjol part, self-liberation or spontaneously liberated, is that when completely left alone, these things are there momentarily and they start to fade almost naturally, or they do fade naturally, sometimes quite quickly, sometimes almost instantaneously. A really important part of the practice is just continuing to sit, just continuing to be there to watch this process happen. Like watching a slow car crash, the car of our mind, our conceptual mind crashing. And we're just watching, right? Not poking, not prodding, not, doesn't matter how weird the thoughts are or how intense the thoughts are or how violent the thoughts are or how much self-loathing the thoughts are reflecting, just watching them, right? There's absolutely no need to classify, put them in different boxes. There's no need to, say, oh, well, because this thought arose, I hope the next one is going to be like this other thing. Just completely let go. And the more that we do this, the more that we're able to kind of, really feel into in an authentic way these kinds of lines, like, all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana have no real nature when the truth is seen. And what is the fundamental nature of every single thought or experience that arose during your meditation session? The answer is that they're all the same. It is all the same nature. Right? This begins to kind of get at the yoga of one taste, right? One of the one of the four yogas of the practice of Mahamudra. So thoughts of hope and worry come to an end. Right? There's nothing to worry about. Just let the thing, even if it's a murderous thought, come and go. No problem. Intense envy. Envying the lights in the back of Sally's, behind Sally. Just let the envy come. Oh, I wish I had lights like that. And then let them go. Right? But without self-consciousness, right? Without this, oh, I am having a thought. Oh, okay, now the instruction is to let it go. Just let it go. This is where this, instruction like practice like a simpleton is really important. Just practice like a loose idiot. Just letting things come, letting them go. Who cares? Who cares? Yes, I'm very educated, or yes, I'm the best at this, or yes, I'm a professional, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Just let them come, let them go. Don't try and figure it out. Don't try and track the instruction. Oh, from whom did Saraha receive this, and to whom did he teach it, and is this traceable? Like, don't think about that. No, oh boy, it's the modern context of this. Just who cares? Yes, we're all smart. We don't need to constantly shine that light or that peacock tail. And then so with this last stanza, from that we looked at before starting, so know that just as the various rivers, such as the Ganges, have one taste in the salty waters of the ocean, so all analyzing minds and various mental events have one taste in the Dharmadhatu. And the way that we begin to touch into this or taste into this is to just see if that's the case. Right? Be a psychonaut, be a scientist, be an idiotic scientist. Just seeing what happens. No big deal. Yeah, Milarepa was such a master of this meditation, and he sat in a cave all the time. There's nothing to do. The biggest distraction was himself. The biggest distraction was his mind. So in one way, it's like, of course he figured this out. Right? There's nothing other than that. The beautiful thing about this practice is that we can bring it everywhere we go. There's no little ritual kit. You don't need to have special clothes to do it. You don't even necessarily have to have special vows. You don't have to be a super special person. We can just be ourselves. And every single thing that is experienced becomes the thing that we practiced with. Every ordinary thing, and then every extraordinary thing. Every boring thing, and every exciting thing. It's all food for our practice. So the next portion is on ascertaining certainty through the view, right? And the manner or through which or of which this realization arises. So Saraha goes on to say, someone may examine the entirety of the realm of space, but as it has no center or edge, seeing ceases. By the same way, if one examines mind and phenomenon, there is not a particle of an essence to be found, and even the examining mind will not be seen. One sees that there is nothing whatsoever to see. I'm going to repeat this. Some may examine the entirety of the realm of space, but as it has no edge or center, seeing ceases. In the same way, if one examines mind and phenomenon, there is not a particle of an essence to be found. Even the examining mind will not be seen. One sees that there is nothing whatsoever to see. And Saraha is beginning to point out the non-duality here, right? There's no object of meditation, and there's no separate you to see. In this way, there can be nothing to see. Everything appears, can be experienced. But there's no separateness. There's nothing outside of you. There's no you that's separate from everything in the room. Just find something in the room near you and look at it. And does your mind move up to the edge of this object? Is there like this funny tension there? Does your mind expand through the object, around the object? Is this mind a separate experience from your own physicality, which you assume is you? Is there a center to this experience of mind? An edge? If there's an edge, where is it? Is it at the window, at the door, your body, your nostrils? When you sit like this, is it in your head or your heart, or your toes, or your belly button? Is it in the corner of the room? Is the ceiling holding it in? Is the floor supporting it, or does it just keep going? There's not a particle of an essence to be found. But even the examining mind will not be seen. Where is that awareness? What does it look like? Is it red or green or blue? Can you see it move across the room like a comet? Like a cat? One sees that there's nothing whatsoever to see. Sraha moves on to say, and some of us have seen this instruction before, this description, just as a crow flies away from a ship, circles in all directions and returns to it. The desiring mind, even though it pursues thoughts, returns to the natural primordial mind. Just as a crow flies away from a ship, circles in all directions and returns to it. The desiring mind, or the discursive mind, the cognitive mind, what we call Sen, even though it pursues thoughts, returns to the natural primordial mind, Rigpa. Right? Isn't that true in your experience? You might chase a thought. There's some real juicy ones, like I'm a piece of shit, right? We'll chase that one for a long time. I'm terrible. I'm worthless, right? Well, the machinations around that. I'm better than so and so. You know, these are juicy, right? And so, they trigger us, and we'll go blah 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 blah, triggering thought, subsequent thought, next thought, next thing. And then, when left alone, this crow comes back. Right? We come back into ease. We come back into spacious relaxation. Sraha goes on to say, the Vajra mind is not disturbed by conditions. It destroys the den of fear that is the result of hope and failure. It's a Rigpa, the Vajra mind, cannot be disturbed by anything. So then whatever these ripples of cognitive mind is thinking. If there's this Vajra mind that is completely undisturbed while that's happening, what is the relationship between these two? And here Saraha is pointing out the unchanging nature of mind. of awareness, Rigpa. And then he goes on to describe the practice of Mahamudra. So the first piece is Mahamudra is not to be meditated on. So we can all just get up and leave. It's all over. We can fold everything up and see you later. The fully realized mind is like space. It is not meditated on, and therefore there is no activity in the mind. Right? So what does this mean? The fully realized mind is like space. No center, no edge, no specific qualities, no defining attributes. Holds everything, the ground of everything. Therefore, there's nothing to be active in. The natural intrinsic state of the ordinary mind is unpolluted by contrived mentation. Right? So, this vast, unchangeable mind, beyond the ability to be contained or conceived of, in its natural state, is unpolluted by anything that your thoughts, emotions, etc. can bring. Completely unpolluted. So we see in Shabkar, this question, just as a bird flies across the sky and doesn't leave a trail, do thoughts do the same thing with our mind? Is there like, we have a nasty thought, does it leave this trail of nasty? Or if you have a virtuous thought, does it leave this golden trail across your mind? Sprinkling gold and gemstones. And of course not. Of course not. Naturally pure mind does not need alteration. So we don't need to be tailors. Do not hold, right? Do not hold it. Do not release it. Don't be tense. Don't be loose. Just let it be as it is. Relax. Perhaps even trust him. God forbid. If there is no meditation in the unrealized mind, there's no meditator or object of meditation for those with realization. Nothing to do, just being, just letting everything happen. Just as space cannot focus on space, emptiness cannot meditate on emptiness. The non-dual mind is like water and milk, the one taste of multiplicity, a continuous great bliss. Right? To some extent, if you take milk and you pour water into it, you can't separate them, right? Your mind is space. The basis of thought activity is space. Mind is emptiness. The basic basis of mind is emptiness. There's a separation between thought activity and mind. You can't separate. It's all one experience. The one taste of multiplicity and continuous great bliss. And when we pause and we look back to moments of great suffering, who suffered this morning? I did. Yeah, right? Hi, my name is Justin. I was suffering this morning. Right? Yeah, whatever, that happens, right? Who's suffering right now? Okay, yeah, some are. I'm not. I'm like, Sraha, you are my magic man. Is mindful. What happens when you're suffering? Someone can unmute themselves and tell us all what it is that causes you to suffer. Not in terms of specific topics, but what is that dynamic?
Not wanting the sweetness to go away.
So attachment, control,
Tension and tightness.
tension,
My
and tightness.
body.
You say body?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my body tenses up really tightly.
Mm-hmm.
And even subtle tension will take me out of that space of ease. It feels like. And then I get in a loop of sometimes resisting the tightness. And it's different if I just can drop it. Just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this, but when you asked, who's suffering, like I'm physically sick right now, so I'm suffering, but isn't the practice that the suffering is an impetus to Mahamudra? That the suffering can open to Mahamudra.
Mm-hmm.
Or as you said, you can embrace it with awareness. I'm not saying I can do that, but that's why I try to meditate on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like Gotsangpa was a big fan of bringing his illness, moments of illness, into his Mahamudra meditation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not all like, it's not, we're not looking for, we're still in the relative world and we have bodies and we get sick. And, Mahamudra is not going to prevent that. Right? But it does change the relationship we have to a lot of things. Yeah.
I was gonna, what came to mind for me was similar to what Sarah was saying, the kind of like, I'm experiencing some like tension or unease in my body, or like I can like sense an increased heart rate or something, and then I can't tell, is that like what's causing the suffering, or then there's like there's like an interpretation of it that's like, oh, this seems like I'm like interpreting or judging this kind of like experience as unease. So I must be out of the like natural state right now. And then that being kind of the loop, and then another layer being like, oh no, that's like just interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't do that, then like this kind of sense of unease just would be the play of Mahamudra. So can I do that and then be like, wait a minute, now I'm just overlaying that. So I think it's like, is it just the like kind of like physical experience, or this like kind of overlay, or some like mix and mud of those things that like causes me to interpret or kind of compare what I'm experiencing with some idea of like of ease. And I think that comparison, I think, is maybe like close to the like kind of like cause or root of it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Casey, your hand is raised.
Is it okay if I don't say anything?
Yeah, if you, that's very
No,
Mahamudra.
It's funny. The experience just described has been familiar.
Mm-hmm.
it probably wasn't even until sort of recently, in that relative recently, that I was able to just let it, like any state, be, because there's I think that background anxiety, that sort of low level anxiety, is sort of like the last vestiges of an awareness of a distinction between samsara, but left alone, it is the exact fucking thing as anything else that you leave alone. Oh, I'll stop talking now.
Mhm. Yeah. So maybe this will help. Saraha goes on to say that the supreme meditation is never apart from non-meditation. So in this way, throughout the 3 times, there's nothing to be done in the mind. It is the natural state free from extremes. We name this, quote, cultivation, unquote, unquote, meditation, unquote. Don't hold the breath. Don't bind the mind. Leave the uncontrived mind be, like a baby. If memories and thoughts arise, look at them themselves. Don't think of the water and the waves as separate. When tightness arises, don't do anything. Just let everything be. When looseness arises, just let it be. When the impulse to control comes in, just let it be. When the impulse to run away arises, just relax. When the body gets tight, we have physical experiences, just rest into the experience and see what happens next. I was talking with somebody yesterday who was relating to me an experience they had talking to Dr. Nita, and they're bringing their meditation experience to him, and he said, "Oh, very interesting. Where'd you go to school?" Well, this person went to Harvard, and he's like, you see, too conceptual, too much thinking, too many concepts, too much complexity. And reminded this person that everything is an illusion. You know, Casey, is your hand raised again?
Yeah, I can't stop talking, Lama. Help me. The only practice is that, right? Like, it's just a practice of familiarization, and then everything that could happen in practice is recognized as that essence. And I think that's maybe non-meditation, but I don't know what else to say about it. So I'll stop talking again.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Cloud. Yeah.
Hey, Lama Justin.
Hey.
This feels like so much like easier said than done stuff where like now that I'm like kind of like in the world again more and like in these relationships that like trigger stuff in me, I'm like what we're like talking about here, I'm like realizing how much of like life work it is now. And like because when I get like triggered and I go into fight or flight mode, it feels like very impossible to like actually not react.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, so I don't really know, I just wanted to share like
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing like all this is actually like harder than I might have thought when I was more of a hermit.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that last point you brought up, Boko Rinpoche at one point told me when I was talking with him, I was reporting back to India to go talk with him about practice, and he was like, I was talking with him about practicing on the subway, you know, in the city, and he was like, "Oh, that's very good." He's like, when everything is really cloistered and you're a hermit, so to speak, everything's kind of controlled. It's easy for your practice to feel really, really deep and profound. But then you come out of that situation, and someone's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And then you're like, "Wait, what? Like, what are you talking? Like, I'll tell you who I am. Like, you come here." All of a sudden, you've gone down this whole path. Yeah, so there's that. That's definitely true. And I really like what you brought up about the fight or flight response. I kind of feel like both Mahamudra and Dzogchen are really kind of pushing us like against, our biological, impulses around survival. We as a species, really benefited from the vagus nerve and, the fight or flight response, being kind of almost hardwired into our physiology. And it almost is as if these practices are rewiring, or causing us to, look at what it means to rewire that kind of experience / response, which maybe or may not be true, but it's worth being curious about. Sometimes we hear about conditioning in these instructions, and there's not so much necessarily in this particular one about how conditioned we have become, but we have, right? Like the way we respond to things, the way we respond to what we see, right? There's certain things we may see that trigger us. There may be certain things that we hear that are hard for us. There may be things that we think that is unpleasant, and therefore we begin to want to push away or anything like this. I think that actually I was once talking with somebody who was super anxious and agitated, and we looked at practicing Tilopa's 6 nails backwards, starting with resting. And I think that this can be a little helpful. We can make it Tilopa's 7 nails and add resting at the beginning and at the end as like bookends, which I think is helpful. Or it is actually kind of helpful to go backwards and, start with, relax, rest into this moment. And the beautiful thing about this is the next one is don't try to figure anything out. Right? And this is important, is giving ourselves the room to not have to exert any labor in trying to figure out our mind. Just let it be. And yes, viscerally, this can be incredibly uncomfortable. Don't try to control. That's intense too, especially when we are feeling out of control. Right? And we're cultured, more or less, broadly speaking, in the West to hold it together. Hold your shit together, man. Pull yourself together. Oh, that person's a mess. All these things, right? Like this is, right? And so we're saying like, don't worry about that. Don't control. Don't try and figure it out. Like, don't create these narrative arcs of this happened to me for blah 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 reason, and now blah 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 blah. Right? We're not even entering into that. Just let it be. Liberate yourself from the Harvard mind. Liberate yourself from being too smart. Who cares? Nobody cares. The trees don't care. The rocks don't care. The birds don't care. All the microorganisms in your gut don't care. The wind doesn't particularly care. Sound itself won't lift a finger caring. The air you just breathe doesn't care. The ground that holds you up doesn't care. And it's not that we don't matter, not at all, but somehow we care about everything. That's part of the problem, right? Don't hold the breath, don't bind the mind. Leave the uncontrived mind be like a baby. If memories and thoughts arise, look at them themselves. Don't think of the water and the waves as separate. Maybe we'll pause here. Now, the practice of Mahamudra really is like the practice of compassion, right? Because you can't do this without developing compassion for yourself. You certainly can't do this if you don't have compassion for yourself, because who are you going to be sitting with? Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa, was your hand raised? I didn't see.
Depends how much time we have. I just wanted to put this out there, and it's for another time. Cloud, it's very inspiring to me what you're talking about. And I feel like everybody is bringing this up. We're talking about suffering and this subtle anxiety that's in all of us. And yet we're here. And this came up during the protector intensive you did, where somebody was talking about spiritual experiences and how to integrate that with the world. Because I feel like there's this question in the West of how to be a serious Buddhist and be in the world. And I know there's a lot of writing about that, but I feel that somewhat of what people are grappling with, maybe I'm projecting because I'm really grappling with that. And to apply these practices, whether it be Tantra or Mahamudra or whatever we're doing, in the day-to-day world is really rigorous and hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to know how to be or learn how to be, which is what these practices are about, let alone be a support for others, compassionate support for others. And so in this way, like, it may very well be that the practice of Mahamudra is like putting that oxygen mask, that falls from the plane, on yourself first, right? And why this is important is because this practice teaches us a lot of things, like all of the paramitas, right? It teaches us compassion because we are going to invariably sit with our mind and our reactivity. We're going to experience our anxiety, our fear, our isolation, our brokenness. And we will invariably kind of bounce back and forth from time to time, within that. Having these moments, though, of liberation, periodic liberation from it, periodic liberation, periodic liberation, periodic liberation. But it won't truly take root if when discomfort arises, we say, man, these people are crazy. This is some bullshit. Like, I'm supposed to sit here and, unweave all of this. I'm supposed to do that. I could could do all sorts of things, like, rather than this, right? It's not that they're crazy, right? It's that, yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard to meet our conditioning face to face. It can be hard to meet our biases face to face, the conscious ones and the unconscious ones. Right? It can be hard to meet all of our you know, begin to see like how this carefully constructed self is illusory, you know, and all of the investment to making this shit shine super nice, you know, to be the envy of every other practitioner, to be the envy of blah, 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 blah. Right? And so it's a practice of humility. It's a practice of patience, being here with ourselves, being here with, you know, our discomfort, and not torturing ourselves, because again, you know, this piece about recognizing the space in all of it is a fundamental part of the instruction. Right? That even in the ordinariness, even in the brokenness, even in the humdrum, you know, I don't know what's going on mess, there's space. And I agree, there's perhaps way too much emphasis these days on, you know, engaged dharma, especially when we don't know our own minds. So it's not a lot of skill in that so much, you know. If you don't know your own mind and you jump up to attend to an emergency, that's not necessarily going to be the same, you know, nearly as effective as knowing yourself a little bit first, even though the impulse might be pure, you know, or the intention might be pure. So yes, easily said, hard done, or hard to manifest. Perhaps, but maybe that's not true. We should be slow to define, right? Categorize, make things rigid. But in any event, we'll pause here and pick this exciting text up next week. Maybe we can dedicate the merit right now to all beings who are stuck in such rigid reality, right? The rigidity of their emotions, the rigidity of their thought, as if their mind is stone, their emotions are stone. May all beings be able to gently glide into ease, relaxation, self-care, self-love, as they begin to recognize the space that makes up every single aspect of our being, the purity that makes up every single aspect of our being, and the liberation that is our true nature. But until then, may we all support one another in our practice of Mahamudra and everything else. May everyone here be blessed, and anybody who happens to watch this recording be blessed as well. Now take really good care of yourselves and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone.